Right, so this part is all about volunteering. It's called Bedrock of Community-Owned Clubs. So I just wanted to tell you about a report that we did about 3 years ago, which I know Neil knows very well because he wrote about it in When Saturday Comes.
I did.
Brownie Points. So part of this report actually looked at volunteering, and we looked at 6 different clubs. So Merthyr Town, FC United, AFC Telford United, Exeter City, Lewes FC and Hunslet Hawks. And as part of the research we tracked essentially how many people were volunteering for these clubs, and then we put a price, had an hourly price on those volunteer hours, just to see how important volunteering is. So based on the London living wage, which was £7.65 at the time, and that obviously doesn't reflect the actual skills that people might have been bringing. It was just basically a £7.65 basic wage. Got a whole load of stats for you here which make for pretty interesting reading. So AFC Telford United valued their volunteering on that £7.65 rate as 106,000 a year. Exeter City almost 150,000. Hunslet close to 100,000. So in Lewes, we talked about earlier, from 50 people, 25,000 hours. They were getting work pretty hard down in Lewes. It's almost £200,000 worth of volunteer hours a year. So it ended up being roughly, from clubs that are mainly semi-professional clubs. There's one professional club in there, turning over less than £1 million, but about £125,000 a year that was coming from volunteering. So massively important, and as I say, bedrock really of community ownership. So I'm gonna just do a few slides to give a little bit of the motivations really behind volunteering. I wanted to draw your attention to some research from someone called Join In. So these guys came about after 2012 Olympics, so the kind of legacy project to look at volunteering. They were inspired by the Games Makers, if you remember, and it kind of really came off the back of that. Now they have done various bits of research, and we'll look in particular at a piece of work they did last year, but back in 2014 they estimated that a single volunteer in sport creates a well-being value worth over £16,000 for themselves and those that they help. But they've gone a bit further, and I think there's some really useful stuff here that hopefully people in the room can kind of feel, can see how it fits in with the world that they are. So one of the things, huge misunderstanding, so over half the public don't realise that community sports clubs are run by volunteers, which is everyone here, right? So as a general stat, over half the general public don't realise that, and something that came in my inbox just this week actually, doesn't know I put him on this slide, but I just thought it was a really nice little thing to do. It was a guy down at Basingstoke Town who's volunteering in there. It's got a great title actually. It sounds like head of digital and marketing at Basingstoke Town, but it's just popped volunteering in square brackets at the start, which I just think is a nice subtle little way to say, I'm a volunteer, because I think that does get lost, certainly with the people that we work with, and I'm sure you can probably think of times where it might have been helpful to remind people that you were volunteering. Another thing that the Join In research found was massive opportunity. So actually a quarter of people, and I think this was from about 300,000 people that were surveyed, about a quarter of people thought that a lack of physical fitness or sport knowledge was a major barrier to actually volunteering. And as we probably all know, most volunteer roles don't need physical fitness. I'm not going to look around the room, but it's various business skills, it's running organisations, it's all sorts of different things. It's not about how quick you can run a 5 or 10k. Another thing they found was that don't ask, don't get. So one thing, 36% of people looked for volunteer opportunities, specifically in sport online and social media. So it's arguably more younger and digital. And just in the last week, a few groups that I've met or I know where there's more and more online opportunity really to advertise for positions and to volunteer as well. So one of the organisations who's part of our How to Change corporate practice called Project Dirt, they're essentially online communities where they connect people up with volunteering opportunities across all different sectors. There's a massive platform, you can advertise roles, and they're nationwide, so you can just do it from the comfort of your own seat. Join In as well, they've got a portal where you can say, offer your services or advertise if you're a club for opportunities. And I actually met someone this morning from, I don't know if anyone's heard of this, pretty fascinating, called Echo, where you actually trade, so you give an hour of your time, whatever it might be, whatever skill. So, it might be great at making sandwiches, right? And then an hour's an hour, whatever it is, and then you can, once you've got an hour, you can buy an hour of someone else. It might be great at making sandwiches, I've done that, and I can buy a bit of accountancy help over here. So it's called Echo, and it's just like, for me, turning the whole volunteering thing on its head, where people can just put in a small amount of time for a specific thing, which I think will resonate with certain people. Sports volunteers do more volunteering and enjoy it more. That's a good title. So compared to other types of volunteers, 60% of volunteers say they help out in sport because they enjoy it, which is more than just general volunteering, which is 53%. And again, 46% against 31% say they're more likely to volunteer further if they had extra time. So it seems like a positive place to spend your time. Going to a point that I think someone here made earlier about burning out. Sports volunteers taken for granted and burning out. So 32% stopped volunteering in sport last year, which is huge when you look at the average for other sectors, which is 17%. I think we've all got personal examples of this, and certainly other people that we know of who would have to step away because of the amount that they've had to take on. But also a few other things. 18% dropped out because they thought the club was badly organised, and 19% felt it was someone else's turn to step in. I think, so this one, concept of time, some good news. So 42% cite the reason they volunteer in sport is to fill spare time. Obviously time is one of the biggest motivators, but one of the biggest barriers. And yeah, being clear about the time is obviously that you're committing is important to get people on board, and that's a little logo of Echo, of the group that I spoke to this morning. I think this one is one you need to post everywhere. So volunteering in sport contributes more to well-being than any other type of volunteering. So there's your sell when you're going to go and recruit some people. There's no other volunteering opportunity that is going to increase your well-being in sport. So if you take nothing away from this last 10 minutes, just remember that line next time you're trying to pin someone at the bar or recruit someone to do another job. If they're going to volunteer, do it in sport, because their well-being will increase like no other area. Don't tell them a bit about burning out, probably. Cool. Okay, so then I've just got a few more slides on some tips that we've picked up just working with different groups, and I thought hopefully then it'd be good to get your own experiences of what's worked for you and what hasn't worked for you. I won't do the whole slide because it's quite busy, but certainly being specific is something that seems to work. So thinking about time commitment, thinking about potentially a role description, although that might scare some people off. But if you can be specific about the time they're committing, I think that's the main thing. So that people you manage their expectation. I think this goes back to that research a little bit. So understanding why people volunteer is critical. As we all know, people volunteer for different things. Some people want to meet new people, some people want to be part of a team, some people have volunteered because they've been involved with the juniors and that was their connection. Some people do it on value. They like the idea of a community business. That's what sucks them in. So understanding why people volunteer, what's driving them to do it, is obviously going to help you how you recruit. Rewarding volunteers. We all like rewards, we like on Facebook when someone likes our post, it's nice to be told that you've done well. It's that simple, really. So I know that some of the clubs have reward their volunteers with Christmas parties, or they've done away days to matches where basically, normally a home match, there's a whole volunteer team that's looking after the game. Well, when you're away, they set aside a game each season, bus everyone there, look after them, give them a good day out, reward them really for the time and effort they put in. It's easy to forget, but it does mean something to a lot of people, or most people. Probably goes against the burnout earlier slide, but retention, as we all know from jobs as well, if experience and skills that have been worked up over time is invaluable, really, and getting new people that come in that start from the ground up can be quite exhausting. It's great to have new people coming through, but retention would be fantastic if there wasn't that much churn. So making sure people don't feel overburdened, being aware of people's own lives and where they might dip in and out of being able to give more time, being flexible where you can. I know it's difficult because everyone here is a volunteer in the first place, but it's better to keep someone involved, even if it's in a small way, knowing that you can bring them back in rather than burning them out and losing them forever. So a few other tips in there. Delegating responsibilities. Again, easier said than done, but kind of clever, proactive delegation. being flexible, having good contact points so that people know who's got too much on and where there might be a bit more freedom of time. And also, I think we've all probably seen this one, that you don't have to focus on the board. You know, the board is quite a formal place and it just doesn't suit some people and they don't want to go there. But there's loads of different places for people to get involved in different areas of the club. And as I can think of a couple of clubs in here where there've been special one-off groups where like governance reviews and other things where people have, it's been a stepping stone really to actually then coming on the board and committing more time, because you know they probably don't want to jump straight into a 3-year term on the board. So it's a good way to hook people in. I know a few clubs do this where they track the skills of the members and approach people based on the skills that they have. That in itself shows a degree of kind of professionalism and organisation that I think will hopefully appeal to some of those people that approach. Not always true though, because some people actually don't want to do what they do in a job. When they volunteer, it's the last thing they want to do. But it just shows an extra level of kind of credibility, I think, to know what people are good at and how you might be able to bring them in. Touched on this one really about what drives people to volunteer. People obviously respond in different ways. Face-to-face, I think, is probably the best way. A bit of pampering of ego can always help. But all the tactics, going through other people, all the communication channels available, worth investing in. And tell yourself, so people want to join a winning team. If people are looking to volunteer, clearly there's all sorts of opportunities. They want to be part of something that's going to make a difference, that's going to change the world around them. So highlight your achievements, lie about what a great time you have and how easy it all is, but sell yourself. A challenging one, also got the most on it as a slide, and I'm sure there'll be some discussion around this. How can you make volunteers accountable? And also thinking about, clubs here, there's, it's the businesses, and sometimes there's certain roles within the club where the volunteer has stepped up, but they're so important to the actual viability of the club, maybe the fundraising area or commercial, where actually there has to be accountability, and that is a difficult thing to do, obviously with a volunteer, but obviously being aware of the different roles and their importance, and thinking about how you can formalise and have accountability with volunteer agreements in some places. And planning, if something's clearly not working in an important area, or maybe de-risking certain areas where you've had volunteers and you just have to accept that you need to pay someone to do it, might be the way forward as well. And final one, tips really is linked to some of those online resources, really is taking advantage of local resources. So there might be a lot of people outside the membership who just aren't in your communication channels, not receiving your message, but are looking for opportunities. And as we know, that could be people that are looking for work experience type opportunities, or it could be people that have got early retirement, whatever it might be. So that's where you project Dirt and these other bigger databases where people can just go online and match themselves up with different opportunities. That might be the way that you capture a few new faces that come along. So, now we hear from the real experts in the room. I don't know if anyone wants to comment on successes. Maybe we do successes first, where any of those things perhaps that you guys do. Volunteers, Neil, you look keen. You're sort of twisting your pen.
Just writing. There's one point in the last bit. I'm from Chester FC, by the way. I'm Neil. They stole the streaming idea off me, so I the last bit, we've got a group locally in Cheshire who basically are a local database of people who want to volunteer, and they're accountants and solicitors and whatever, and we've used them in the past to try and find people, and they're people who aren't necessarily interested in sport but want to help out a community project, and I think that's really helpful sometimes, because you might get someone who's absolutely fantastic in your own group of members and supporters, but sometimes you can't. So we've had some really good help through Supporters Direct, actually, with an architect's firm I'm doing a bit of work with, and also with a commercial lawyer. So that kind of thing. Whilst there will probably be the skills in your membership to run practically everything, you can look outside, and I think that's a really important thing to take away, because there are groups, not necessarily nationally, because we have one in Cheshire where I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but there are other groups. There's probably groups in Greater Manchester and Merseyside and things like that, which do the same thing. So I think that's
another point as well. Is sometimes the larger companies have to do some sort of volunteering as part of their company ethos. So it might be worth approaching large companies to ask whether they do have to do some sort of community service in the end. It might be one day a year.
Yeah.
Where I worked, they went and cleared out some canals and sort of stuff with the countryside, but they might equally come and do some painting, or they might offer IT skills or whatever you need.
A very good point, actually, because I forgot this.
I was trying not to mention names.
Our major sponsor, MBNA, have basically built our website. We're getting a new website, and they've basically built it for using their IT team, because they do, I think it's 2 days a month, or 1 day a month, they ask people to do volunteering and things, and the IT team have helped us out hugely and saved us probably thousands of pounds just from that.
And you had was it your old chief exec or one of your board? He was your chief exec, wasn't he? Yeah. He came from MBNA, didn't he?
Yes. Steve. Yeah.
Steve. That's right.
Yeah. Steve's a fan, and they seconded him to the football club for a year.
At least,
yeah. 18 months. It was quite a while. Right at the start when we first reformed.
Yeah.
So that was helpful. The MBNA are great. This is not an MBNA advert. They are. Yeah.
Good. Cheers, guys. Gavin, did you want to talk about this slide?
Just about volunteering in general. I think it's there's a trigger within the club, so depending on how sort of critical the problem is, you tend to attract more volunteers and tend to be lots of professional volunteers, because I call it the time trade-off versus the criticality of losing your football club. So what we found at Wrexham is that there's been a number of occasions when things have gone well, so the volunteering tends to drop off, or if there's a big problem, volunteers tend to come forward. But as we're a relatively mature trust now, I think we need to start moving to a model whereby the back office is almost employees, and the volunteers come and act as governors and for specific projects and to help out and just to top up. I don't think we can totally rely as a business. But the line of business volunteers, I think they need to be employees and be managed, and a lot of the issues that comes with volunteering goes away because people it's their livelihood.
Yeah. And the accountability bit.
And the accountability
Changes.
and the formal contracts
Yeah.
and the expectations.
Yeah.
You do. I'm not advocating that the board becomes employed.
Yeah.
I'm on about sort of like the senior team. Let's say.
Yeah, I mean that's the decision we've taken at Chester last year, basically, to do that. So because previously there was a lot of pressure on the board. So if we did lose a board member, it caused a huge problem. We moved to the model Rex was talking about to try and have that continuity, because the problem is with volunteering is you don't have to give notice. If people want to leave, they can leave immediately, which has happened occasionally. It doesn't always happen, but that is sometimes a problem, because someone's working on a project, they just leave and just say, I don't want to do this anymore for whatever reason. Sometimes it's fair enough. So I think that's something that is a good point as well. The longer you go on, the more you have to think about continuity, and I think that's an issue. I suppose we're lucky in that we're a fairly large club. I suppose for smaller clubs, like Lisbon, who we've got here, that's more of an issue, because it's going to always be based on volunteering.
And what helped you decide which areas? Did you look at the budget? Did you look at the time? Things like membership, for example. You can make a case for paying someone to do membership, probably, because of the importance of membership and actually the revenue to it. Or how did you decide which parts to get paid support and which?
We always had a little bit paid, of paid staff. I think it's kind of evolved. It's not. It's difficult to say, because I think that was partly to deal with management day to day, and partly to do commercial.
Yeah.
So I suppose they were the issues we were concerned about in the close season last year. We do have other paid staff. I mean, we've got like a groundsman. That's pretty obvious why we've got a groundsman.
Yeah.
And a bar manager and things like that, because you couldn't have a volunteer bar manager, really. So, some of it is necessity of the business, because we have an asset that is managing, like the pitch or the bar, and some of it is a strategic decision to try and have continuity of management, and also of, because especially like commercial people in businesses like to deal with the same people, so to have volunteers do 2 or 3 years was fantastic, but really we need to have longer than that in the commercial sense, because usually business owners don't change as often, unless they're big businesses, obviously. We deal with medium businesses, medium-sized and small businesses, as well as bigger businesses. So you've got to make sure you have the same face for them to contact. They know who they're dealing with, that kind of thing. So.
I've got a story on the volunteering side in regards to that, is when we actually moved over to try to get more permanent employed people in those management positions. We had quite a turnover of commercial managers, and our volunteer commercial director on our trust board was there for the whole time, and he got to learn the job, and he also built up the contacts. So it was the solution was just staring us in the face, and just realised one day, well, why don't we just offer him the job?
It can work both ways.
And it did. It worked. It worked fantastic. So he was at that stage of life where his career was coming sort of into the sort of December years, and said, well, why not give us 2 or 3 years? Went home, thought about it, and he said he wished he'd have thought about it, and it's been fantastic. Been the most successful commercial manager Wrexham's ever had. So it does work both ways. But we would not have had that guy unless he had the 2 or 3, maybe 3 years with the volunteering skills behind it.
I think that's the other thing to mention, that volunteering really can improve your skills. I mean, I've learned loads since I've been on the board, so
Here's one then. Has anyone here got a volunteer role profile that they actually, for themselves, Does anyone use them, or is it just scary?
We do for some roles.
Some roles, right?
We have like a general volunteer handbook and things.
Yeah.
But usually it's just because
There's a generic directors one, so
Yeah.
when we're trying to co-opt people or it's coming up to AGM time, we've done a generic one, so what
Yeah.
it means to be a director and stand on the board, what sort of time commitments you could be expected to give.
Yeah.
And if somebody's interested, then they get all that up front, so
Yeah.
that we've set it out what they do, and then they have to do a CV and a manifesto. So we want to know what they can bring to the club, and then you meet with them. The chair role's got one, hasn't it? And then
Yeah.
just the paid members have got like job descriptions.
Yeah.
some specific roles we do have specific, but not many because we're working
Yeah.
through those.
Yeah, we haven't done any for the portfolios because they change depending
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the needs of where we're at that
Because
particular.
my portfolio, for example, is communications. But at the start, I did a lot of day-to-day media stuff. But since we've basically changed I changed the model of how we run our media side. So my role has changed hugely in 3 years. So, but that's because of decisions we've made. So it's not. I think sometimes you can't really have that on the board.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well, when you're a volunteer, sometimes you just pick up stuff that other people have dropped. And because I do a lot of Supporters Direct. I have done in the past, and that was just because there wasn't anyone else to do it, and I thought I quite fancy doing that. And I think you start doing stuff.
Was
that-
fighting you broke out.
it was a full-on brawl. But yeah, sometimes you just pick up stuff that you didn't expect to do, and you can't realistically put that in a job description.
But I think as well, it's like they were saying there at Wrexham, people keep dropping off for various reasons, and so you can't be too prescriptive because whoever's left, that whatever they were doing, that's got to keep going. So you've got to keep picking stuff up all the time. So it is about being flexible and finding people that can be flexible.
And another thing is we don't want to put anyone off from standing for the board or from volunteering. So if we say, if we as a board said we need some legal person, and we only have one space on the board whatever year, it's going to put people off from standing, and they might not have legal experience, but it might be fantastic in other ways. So I think that's another thing to kind of so if you have, it's fine going out to the membership and saying we need someone with legal experience for a specific project, but if you kind of have portfolios on the board which are too prescriptive and saying this one's empty, then that might put people off from volunteering for the board side of things. But
we definitely endorse that. It's funny because if you do think that, the accountability, like often it's the natural thing to think of that that's what you should do, but I totally agree actually. You want those rounded board members, then you can buy in or bring in the experience, can't you, on specific topics. What about just thinking Chester and Wrexham, like your match day operations and things, particularly as, Chester have grown up, gone through the leagues quite quickly. I remember hearing from AFC Wimbledon they'd have volunteer stewards and then they'd have paid stewards. And has your match day operation changed much in terms of paid voluntary?
To be honest, I wasn't on the board when we were in Low. I came in the board in the conference.
We have a mix, so there's some of the stewards are paid,
some volunteers, aren't they?
and some are volunteers. Ticket office people, they're all volunteers. Bar staff, it's a mix, so you've got the bar manager and he pays some people and others are volunteers. So we mix and match it. I would say is probably the best answer to that.
It depends on like all the media's all volunteers, all our media team.
PAs, volunteers.
Volunteers. Players aren't.
No, we pay them.
Sometimes I think they should.
And does that just naturally, organically happen, or is there like a policy of?
I think it is just organic, really.
Yeah.
It just depends. If someone
On the people,
if someone wants to help and they've got a stewarding license, then that makes sense, doesn't it? If they're a fan, then it just makes sense.
The disability liaison officer we've recruited recently, it's a volunteer role, but the club's paid for the DBS checks.
Right.
So we've done that.
And he was absolutely perfect. He'd been working with. You couldn't write a better CV for him. It was absolutely brilliant, and it's just in our fan base. And I think you've got to remember that if we wanted to hire one, we probably couldn't have hired a better one.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you got to. We have obviously mentioned paid roles and things like that, but you do have those people in your fan base who can do the job a lot of the time. And
I think as well, if your
strength.
budget's limited,
Yeah.
then you've got to decide where do you need the budget, and at the end of the day, probably you've got to put as much as you can into the playing budget, because that's what's going to guarantee your success and keep people coming through the turnstiles.
Yeah.
So there's no point paying all your staff if you can't afford to pay your players.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it's
And
probably been,
after all, that's what people come for.
yeah,
So,
Yeah.
you know,
we've only got a finite amount of money, and
Yeah.
that's the way we cut it.
Is that similar, Wrexham?
No, because it's only recently we've actually purchased the stadium,
Yeah.
and the purchase was done via 2 acquisitions. One was for the actual physical property, and the other was the stadium as a business. So that's the processes, the stock, the people. So those people were paid previously. So we've taken the whole matchday operation side of the stadium on, and that obviously we had to do the personnel transfer and the HR transfer across. So all these people salaried. So I think that's going to be a generational change. It's something that's not just going to happen overnight, because if you just decide to say, right, I want everybody to become volunteers, you turn up on a Saturday morning and you look around and it's like the Barry Celeste, and let's put the match on.
Yeah.
So, but it's a balance between being realistic about putting that match on 2 o'clock and meet all the health and safety requirements, or trying to be as moral as possible and firm believer in fan zone, volunteer.
Yeah.
There's it's all about trade-offs.
Yeah. Yeah. Change of tack then. So, has anyone got any cracking tips on recruiting people? You know, Don, you've got a big operation there, all your coaches. Do you get sent in to do the one-to-one, or you know, is there a formula that you guys have got? Because you know, you've gone from, what was it, 2 teams 3 years ago, and now you've got over 60, 70 volunteers.
It's fair to say most of the volunteers are on the coaching side.
Yeah.
That's bringing new demands with the recent disclosures around safeguarding, etc.
Yeah.
So we've had a sort of in-house HR exercise, really trying to, you know, get 60 plus people across all the teams to where they need to be.
Yeah.
I mean, the challenge for a club like ours, who's sort of just come onto the football pyramid, as it were, is to really move towards a better business model.
Yeah.
I mean, our vision would be to be operating out of a community sort of football hub, and if we're going to move to our own facility, the powers that be, that's the sort of direction in which I think they'll push us. I would foresee a day where, or a time, when maybe 1 or 2 people might be employed, and in the main, 2 or 3 levels above, the main bulk will be volunteers, not only on the sort of coaching side, but you know, match day and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
What we have done, and I guess it was on one of your slides, is that we've, as part of our share issue and the membership form, we're doing a bit of a skills audit.
Nice.
So we're asking sort of age and sort of occupation, skills, expertise, and are you prepared to offer that?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I was looking at some application forms yesterday, and the people who I know who've been coming along to the games, and all of a sudden I've discovered what they do, and it's everything from union negotiators to sort of accountancy to sort of IT skills, and so I suppose the lesson learned is that you need to understand what you've got before you even begin to, you know, widen your reach really. But
Yeah. And I suppose the interesting thing will be, as I said, sometimes you find people want to give those skills, and sometimes you see that's the last thing they want to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
They want to get away from work. Yeah. But over.
I think the other thing is as well that some people will volunteer, and it may be to sort of address a bit of our social isolation or something like that, and they just come along and really you sort of you're trying to think through what they actually bring to the party, and you're trying to sort of fit them in where you can, and we've had one or two that have been totally inappropriate really, and we've had to sort of be diplomatically sort of send them on their way, but
normally there's a place somewhere in the structure, isn't there?
yeah.
To help. But over I'm sure, have you thought about because the junior teams again been successful, haven't they? There's lots of people.
Yeah, there seems to be plenty of volunteers when you're at juniors,
Yeah.
but when you go into open age, they all drop away.
Yeah.
It's hard work getting volunteers on open age football, for instance.
Yeah.
We've got to go through, now we're getting a new clubhouse, we've got a lot of issues to address regarding paid people, like you say, bar staff and groundsmen, might have to pay a groundsman, etc, etc. So these are issues that we've got to look at in the next month or 2, 3 months.
Yeah.
It's always been a problem getting volunteers for open age football, no problem with juniors.
Yeah. Well, that might be where some of the things Chester have picked on with the local businesses, giving up their time. Might be opportunities perhaps to help out in the club.
It's about getting yourself out to the community, letting them know that you're where you are and what you require.
Yeah.
Which we are. We attend the 3-monthly business group meeting, we're called BW3, Devonshire Forum, with business people. We do networking. We've just started that in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
So that's where hopefully, like I say, volunteers. There's auditors, there's accountants, solicitors, all sorts involved in the group. So that's where we might be able to get some expertise from that through that system. Not having you.
Just on that, I think the reference made. Is it corporate social responsibility schemes that these companies run? That's it. Yeah. That's what we're trying to plug into.
Yeah.
At whatever level, and of course, we're trying to promote ourselves in terms of a community club that's got good values, that wants to make an impact over and beyond football in the local community, and tick all the health and well-being agendas and so on and so forth. And things like housing trusts and so on and so forth, we find sort of quite supportive locally, because they've got those shared agendas around this corporate social responsibility, and part of their remit is to give a bit back, and that's where I think you can pick up some of the skills that perhaps you need. The universities in Liverpool have been good for us in terms of physiotherapy, and some of the skills around that really, where you're providing training and getting input into your club. And 1 or 2 of them have hung around when they've graduated as well. So, and IT skills in the local further education colleges, in terms of social media. And we've got somebody from the Etihad. There's a course that runs there around football business. We've got a couple of students who are Liverpool based, working on that, and they've actually set up live broadcasts and done a hell of a lot for us. So they've actually moved the club forward. So they've brought, so we've got video, we've got live broadcast of games, and he's actually networked this and developed it into a group of 4 or 5 who are doing social media, and they're actually doing games around the Northwest Counties, so other clubs are benefiting as well. So I think you've really got a net wide.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's fantastic. Did you go to them, or did they come to you, or how did that? Did it take much management, or were they kind of left? You just give them access.
It was more by good fortune, but we had an absolutely brilliant guy who'd worked as a media person up in the Scottish League, who is a sort of semi-professional journalist anyhow. And when we kicked off, he came in and helped us, but the league actually poached him, unfortunately.
Right.
So he moved on to the development board of the Northwest Counties.
Yeah.
And there was a gap. So we had it sort of widely advertised, mainly on our website.
Yeah.
And it was the right move for him. Geographically, we were well located.
Yeah.
And this guy was working in as a chef, and had taken a degree course on the Etihad program.
Right.
So right time and place, really.
Yeah.
But he's been a great asset, but he's brought a great deal of energy and drive.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we discovered one of the under-18 teams got aspirations to be a sports journalist, so they hooked up, and
Yeah.
so that's been a great asset. But I mean, and it's been an asset not only to us as a club, but to the league generally.
Yeah. Yeah. And it will help the lad out for his journalism, won't it? As well,
It's a win-win. Yeah. That's it. I mean, and that's the bit where I think you've got to focus, really. It's about member benefit, or volunteer benefit as well. It's the same sort of principle, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I've got to mention about retention. It's hard enough getting people in the first place. So some of the activities to do to actually keep hold of good volunteers.
Yeah.
So I think I'm into my 15th year as a volunteer at Wrexham.
Did you get a testimonial, Gav?
I know that's difficult to believe, but on the 15th year, and we had a discussion a few years ago about what are the if you like, the sources of negative retention. So what are the forces to stop you being a volunteer? So at the time, some of us had a young family, partners, and slowly what we decided to do is involve the children, I had teenagers at the time, so they started helping out at the shop, taking photographs and selling programs, and then finally, about 3 years ago, I got my wife working, helping out at the bar, in the boardroom. So now it's a case of everybody's fighting at sort of 11:30 for the shower, because everybody's jumping in the car and becoming a volunteer. So it's gone from something that was my passion in 2002, 2003, to my lad's passion, and now it's my wife's the first one in the shower to get ready.
Brilliant.
So that's just a tip to make it. Don't just think it's your hobby.
Yeah.
If you can wind it out, bring in your family.
To us all. I mean, 15 years is fantastic. I can beat that. This great man here, started our football club in 1959 as a player.
1949. 46. 46 as a
You two need to get together.
I didn't realise we'd have a volunteer auction going on here.
If you look at the club that says founded 1946, he was one of them.
We were 59, so we're a bit after that. As I say, he describes himself as the T-boy, and he actually said to me, "Can I get a better title than that, being a volunteer?" So he's head of corporate hospitality now. That's his
Excellent.
Well, I'm going through the stage now of being taught what to do, because I'm of the old school. Like, if something wanted doing, you did it yourself. And now we're talking about people coming and helping out, and people may get paid, and it's another world to me.
So how many roles have you had at your club?
Everyone.
Have you driven the bus?
Well, I've done that and all, yeah.
Well, I've just stopped playing last season.
Are you playing this walking football?
It's a joke, isn't it?
Have you got any other bits of advice then about retaining volunteers or how to encourage them?
Me?
But yeah.
No way. No. I haven't, honestly.
You got to have a passion.
You just got to be nice to people.
Yeah.
Make people feel wanted. That's what I
If you're not nice to people, they won't stay around.
Yeah. Well, it's probably a nice place to finish, unless anyone else wants to unleash some fury about a volunteer challenge or add a bit of joy to something that's gone well. So thank you very much, everyone. It's fantastic.